is a near-perfect day in the month of March in Richmond, Virginia. Blue skies provide the backdrop for the Richmond Coliseum. And inside, final preparations for a full day of college basketball. 4 games in all, starting with the top seed VCU Rams taking on Georgia State. It's the 2009 Army ROTC CAA Championships. Hi, everybody, and welcome to college basketball here on the Comcast Network. I'm Greg Murphy, happy to be part of the CAA Championships once again. It is quarterfinal day. That means 8 teams still alive for that conference title, and we get our first look at the top 4 seeds in this tournament this afternoon and tonight. But the action started yesterday. Take a look at the brackets in the early games. Things went as planned as the Panthers got past Delaware and Hofstra beat UNCW. In the nightcap, JNU advanced to set up their game with George Mason. And the only upset of the first day, the Dragons of Drexel sent home by the Towson Tigers. So, we are just a few minutes away from our first game here this afternoon. It is the top-seeded Rams taking on Georgia State. And for more on that, we go courtside to the guys who will call the game, Scott Graham and John Griffin. Guys?
All right, well, thanks, Murph. And here you go. You got the number 1 seed coming in. Now, 2 teams that a couple people thought could be upset-minded, and Drexel and Delaware are gone. Griff, I got to imagine you come in here right now just a stone's throw from their campus, and VCU has to be an overwhelming favorite.
I think so, Scott. There's a whole crowd of VCU fans here. They got here early, and they're going to be loud. And they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they were upset early in this conference tournament last year, and they have come back with a bit of a vengeance, particularly led by Eric Maynor. This is a guy that wants to get his team to the NCAA tournament.
Well, he is a Conference Player of the Year yet again, and there is literally nothing he can't do on the floor.
Well, Scott, I just love watching this guy play. He's got a range of talents and skills. Great floaters going to the basket as he gets past his man. Got tremendous vision. He gets all of his teammates involved in the game. He's averaging over 6 assists a game. And how about his floaters going to the basket, either for passes to alley-oops? But again, he's just a treat to watch, and the CAA will probably never see another guard like him.
He has been an honor to watch play, and there have been times when he has taken a game under his wing into his own hands. We'll see if that's something that he's going to do today here against a Georgia State team that got themselves a victory yesterday, and they advance now to try to knock off number 1. They've got a big-time player of their own, though, and a guy who came over as a transfer from Wake Forest, and Joe Dukes.
Joe Dukes is having a great season, as you mentioned, a transfer from Wake Forest. And Georgia State's on a bit of a roll. They won 5 of their last 6 games, and Joe Dukes is playing the best basketball of the season, leading his team in scoring. And again, he's a leader on this court, and a great matchup here this afternoon between 2 talented guards in Joe Dukes and Eric Maynor.
Well, Duke's helping a team that not only can score it, but also locks down defensively, as they proved yesterday against Delaware. Interestingly enough, last time Georgia State got a victory here in this tournament, they were beaten on a buzzer beater in the first round last year, was 2 seasons ago. They won an 8-9 game. They had to play number 1. It was VCU, and VCU sent them home packing. VCU was on its way to a conference championship. Let's take it back upstairs to Murph.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Coming up in just a minute, it's the Rams and the Panthers, so stay where you are. College basketball here on the Comcast Network. It's the 2009 Army ROTC CAA Championships. We're back with the tip right after this.
Today, NCAA men's basketball playoffs return to the Comcast Network with Game 2 of the CAA quarterfinals. See the teams of the Colonial Athletic Association compete for the conference championship. The men's CAA quarterfinals, Game 2, today at 2:30 right here on the Comcast Network.
You're ready for Motor Trend's Car of the Year, but you want more. You're ready for real luxury in an all-wheel drive SUV, but you want more. You're ready for your car buying experience to match the Cadillac you've decided you deserve. So, of course, you want more. More Cadillac Hummer on Route 50, where Fairfax meets Loudon. When you want to get more out of life, demand more.
Tonight, NCAA men's basketball playoffs return to the Comcast Network with Game 3 of the CAA quarterfinals. See the teams of the Colonial Athletic Association compete for the conference championship. The men's CAA quarterfinals, Game 3, tonight at 6 on the Comcast Network.
Men's basketball championship is brought to you by the Army ROTC.
Welcome you inside here at Richmond Coliseum. They said a good crowd on hand. A lot of them wearing gold to represent the number 1 seed VCU, but this is the site of the CAA Championship. And as we reach quarterfinal action today, take a look at the tail of the tip for this one. Number 1 facing number 8. VCU 21 wins on the year. They can certainly score the basketball. Georgia State did a very good job last year. They set a school record in fewest points allowed per game. Not that far above that number at 63.7 allowed heading into this game here this afternoon. And taking a look at the starters. The Panthers of Georgia State, Joe Dukes, the guy to absolutely keep an eye on, but they've got other guys who can score it. Leonard Mendez among them, and their three-point shooting specialist is Trey Golston from the outside. The other side for VCU, as we said, Eric Maynor is certainly the headline story, but he does get everybody else involved. Joey Rodriguez, the guy who can do an awful lot in terms of stealing the basketball, shooting from the outside. Larry Sanders, huge force along the inside. And Bradford Burgess really stepped up this year as a freshman as part of this regular rotation. Rod Barnes now in his second season after coming over from Mississippi. Part of the Ole Miss All-Century team as a player. And he's got them playing a strong brand of defense. And there's probably the best dressed coach in the conference, Anthony Grant. Always looks good. His team always plays well. They're 4-1 now in CAA tournament games. And he is 49-10 in CAA play since taking over at VCU. Rams lead the all-time series in a big way. As a matter of fact, you got to go back to January of 1980. The last time Georgia State knocked off VCU was here in Richmond. VCU, number 1 seed in the home white, Georgia State in the traveling blue. And underway now here in quarterfinal action.
Scott, it's always interesting for me to see the first round game for a team that got the bye. In this case, Virginia Commonwealth deserved it, finishing first in the conference during the regular season. But Georgia State's played a game. They're a little bit more familiar with the court. They have their legs under them. They had a good win yesterday against Delaware.
There's Maynor, already a rebound, already the possibility of an assist, and he's got it as Pashelnikov hits on the jump shot.
Maynor just makes everything look easy. He plays the game almost as if it's in slow motion. He sees the court so well, and he makes other guys look even better than they are.
VCU is going to play a stick man defense. They're going to get right in your face. And you'll see them as the game goes on, taking that defense further and further out and pushing the Panthers away from the basket.
Well, Coach Anthony Grant talked about this game in a sense of urgency. You know, this is one and done. There is no kind of playing for second place here. You have to play your best basketball for 40 minutes in order to advance to the next round.
That's his first, as well the Rams' first team foul.
Well, the foul call will go on Rodriguez, and it's going to mean free throws coming now for Trey Golston.
So often is the case, Scott, you see it. The team that played in the first round, in this case Georgia State, just seems a little bit more comfortable in the early part of the game. They have their legs under them. But where it really starts to take a toll is when you advance through the tournament and you're playing your third game in 3 nights, or perhaps even sometimes your 4th game in 4 nights.
John, as a coach, how did you deal with that kind of thing? Was it something that you had to make sure the guys were getting a specific amount of rest, trying to get them off their feet as much as possible?
Absolutely, and if for some reason you thought the game was out of reach, you were winning very comfortably in your first round game, you'd really try to rest your players. It's almost like baseball, trying to preserve your pitchers so that they can pitch more games, more innings. Very much the same in conference tournament play.
That's Rodriguez screened off for a 3, and he got it.
Good execution in the half court by Virginia Commonwealth to get Rodriguez a wide open shot coming off of a baseline screen.
Golston got himself the screen, nothing there. Good switch defensively by the Rams. Georgia State really looks out of sync offensively, I should say. Golston, that little runner in the lane, and he got the friendly roll.
But what I did like about it, Scott, is they didn't rush anything. Virginia Commonwealth played terrific defense, but Georgia State didn't kind of react to any pressure and force up a bad shot.
Their big win yesterday. They held Delaware to just 41 points. A little bit different task trying to hold VCU, but the poke free and the steal. Panthers in transition. It's open. And no good for Mendez. These teams played just last Saturday. VCU, what turned out to be Eric Maynor Day, just down the street, on their way out to a colossal win. At Sanders, a pretty touch in the lane for the sophomore.
Well, Scott, you talked about the last time these two teams played only a week ago. That's really where Virginia Commonwealth had an advantage. In that game, they outscored Georgia State in the paint 42-22. And you're going to see Virginia Commonwealth keep going into the low post to Sanders.
That was a good look. Not sure why Dukes didn't take it. Mendez missing from just inside the three-point arc. And Rodriguez sees 2 on 4. He'll pull it back.
You talked about Virginia Commonwealth's defense. I think they've been noted for that ever since Anthony Grant became the head coach. But against Georgia State in the last game, they held Georgia State to only 13% from the three-point line.
Tipped rebound into the hands of Dukes. And he'll take it himself. Joe Dukes, a tremendous year. All CAA third team, leading scorer for this squad. He had 15 points and 12 boards to go along with 5 assists yesterday. Now Georgia State showing for the first time a 2-3 zone look.
I think it's important in this game that Georgia State makes a statement early on, because in the last game against Virginia Commonwealth, they got so far behind in the first half. They went into the locker room at halftime down 34-20.
That guy, it seems, can do whatever he wants. And Maynor on the little floater in the lane. Puts the Rams up 3. And back the other way, the answer from Duke. So an early duel of scorers starting out.
And these guards really aren't that big, Scott. They're, 6'2"-ish, 6'1"-ish. But they both have a tremendous court presence.
You saw it right there as he gave it up to Mendez. Great play by Rodriguez. He managed to knock it free, but the ball will belong to Georgia State when we come back. Bring us to a timeout on the floor. Duel to the big man inside would give VCU an advantage. They lead it early by 1. Good-sized crowd on hand here at Richmond Coliseum. VCU 4 for their first 5 from the floor, and a 1-point lead over Georgia State as number 1 takes on number 8 today. Of course, number 1 overall in the conference is Eric Maynor.
Yeah, you're going to see him do this time after time. He just sees the court so well. He gets his teammates involved in the game. But he's also a threat to score, obviously. So when I talked about a rare combination of player who can score and get his teammates involved in the game, you just, in your career as a coach, don't come across players like that. And he very much reminds me, Scott, of Jameer Nelson when he played at St. Joe's, and he just makes this team run.
Style of play for Jameer's is a little bit different in terms of what Maynor can do, but you saw Nelson lead his team to a number 1 ranking for St. Joseph's nationally. That team was certainly a special one. And Jameer, of course, now has gone on to a good career in the NBA so far. A lot of people wondering what the next level is going to look like for Eric Maynor, but you've got to think that he's going to have an opportunity to play at that level. Design play off the timeout and a miss from Goldston up on top.
I think Georgia State's made a statement here early in the game that they want to play and can play with Virginia Commonwealth. They're not happy with the way they played the last time these two teams met. And in fact, it's Georgia State's only loss in the last 6 games.
They turned the ball over 21 times in that game as Dukes misses on the fadeaway. Rod Barnes said you can't go into another team's gym on senior day, turn the ball over 21 times and win. It's as simple as that. Banging along the inside as they try to hold VCU to the outside. They get a foul call on the drive. It's going to end up being on Curry as he'll pick up his first.
Well, I like the fact that Georgia State is changing their defenses because I think it can throw Virginia Commonwealth a little bit off balance. They won't necessarily get in a rhythm. Right now, I just think that Georgia State looks confident. They're playing with poise, and I think the interesting thing, and Coach Rod Barnes certainly has to be happy with the first couple minutes of this game, but whether they can keep it up to 40 minutes.
Rizal hitting for 10. Brandon Rizal, a sophomore right out of Richmond. Averaged just a tick under 7 points a game this year.
And he's been scoring well of late. Nice set play on the out-of-bounds play.
Both these teams lost to William and Mary last year in the middle of the Tribe's magical run that got them to the championship game of the CAA championships here last year. Georgia State lost on a buzzer beater, a miracle. And then the big upset as VCU got bounced here by William and Mary. And Duke stepped on the end line, so a turnover Send it back over the other way, and that's the first turnover here in these opening 6 minutes for Georgia State.
He takes the place of Kirill Kuzhelnikov.
Well, Coach Rod Barnes is going to his bench early, and he's very comfortable substituting guys in and out of the game. And that's one of the things we talked about, Scott. You know, if you're going to continue on in this tournament, you have to be willing to go to your bench and kind of lengthen your bench. Guys will get tired, especially depending on the times of the game. That often plays a part. If you're playing a late game the night before and then you have to come back in the middle of the afternoon to play, you absolutely have to get play out of your bench. I thought yesterday Hofstra really benefited from their bench play.
Georgia State was the first game at noon yesterday, so 24 hours more or less in between. A lot of banging inside, and Sanders showing that athletic ability. It's on his second hoop. He's got 4.
Well, he just showed an awful lot of finesse there and able to get that shot up without creating the offensive foul.
Speaking of offensive fouls, and back the other way, that one's going to be on Hampton.
Just good ball movement. You're going to see more of that very unselfish play by Virginia Commonwealth. Sanders does not get called for the offensive foul, and again, only a sophomore, but very poised as he went to the basket. And one of the things about this season versus last year for Sanders is he's staying in the game more, not getting in as much foul trouble.
Great job of jumping through that screen by Curry, and now he's got the ball at the other end. That caught in midair, but a save and a reset for Georgia State. Down by 5 here, first 7 minutes.
I like the way Georgia State is resetting when they don't feel they have a good look at the basket. They're just showing a lot of poise right now early in this game.
Shot clock well under 10 now. And a foul call late in the shot clock, something that VCU's not going to want to see. So Eric Maynor is going to get called for the personal to be his first. That'll deflate you a little bit when you play defense that long through the shot clock. You got him down to 6-7 seconds, or not in a good way, and you commit the foul to give him a fresh shot clock.
Yeah, you hate to see that as a coach, but one of the things that's going to be interesting is to see if Virginia Commonwealth can keep up this defensive intensity for 30 seconds throughout each possession.
Long range. Golston came wide open. He had been 0 for 4 from 3 yesterday, but he's now got 7 and gets his team back to within 2.
Well, he's a legitimate three-point scorer, and as you mentioned, did not have a good game yesterday shooting the basketball, but got a nice stroke. You have to respect his ability to shoot from distance.
I think Georgia State can try to match up a little bit out of this zone.
I think so far offensively, Virginia Commonwealth has not been able to get into a rhythm. Now, Eric Maynor is just terrific at finding seams in that zone defense.
And you're going to get a foul call on the offensive rebound. One of the things that potentially is a problem for Sanders is foul trouble. We'll keep an eye on it.
Georgia State so far doing a good job of keeping the ball alive, getting offensive rebounds. And there you see the lefty, Trey Goldston, knocking down the 3. So that's some great games this year. 25 career high against Towson earlier this season.
No pressure now on the inbound from VCU. They'll try to push the pace. They'll try to turn defense over to offense. You can beat their pressure. That's good news, but they recover so quickly defensively, it's not as if you're going to break through there and get layups.
I read somewhere where Anthony Grant talked about his philosophy about basketball, and that's kind of 94 feet both ways. Nolan Richardson at Arkansas used to say 94 feet of hell here, and I think Anthony Grant wants it to be 94 feet on the offensive end and on the defensive end.
A tip to keep the rebound alive. Ribali almost did that, but a foul call on Georgia State will give it back to VCU when we come back. 2-point game here in the first half between number 1 and number 8. 13-11, top seed on top here in first half action. We said familiar teams to one another because right in this city just a week ago, these two teams meeting last week. And just another day at the office for Eric Maynor. Except this time he had his number retired before the start of the game, then hanging from the rafters, taking his rightful place atop VCU's all-time leading scorers list. Came on this little floater in the lane for him. Then he topped off that day by putting on a show. And they were there to thank him. How about the Pete Maravich-like passes he was finding his teammates with all day long? Other Fs to their second straight regular season conference title with a 69-41 victory just last Saturday. little bit different game here, though, today, Grip.
It is, and I think that Georgia State learned something from that game. I think they realized that they can't go back on their heels. They're going to come back into the city of Richmond and play Virginia Commonwealth again. But I think I see kind of a renewed personality here, and I think Rod Barnes has to be happy with the way his team has started this game. I mean, they are playing right now like they belong in this game and they have a chance to win. And I don't think they did that last week when they played Virginia Commonwealth.
Shelnikov, heck of a one-handed catch inside on the pass from Gwen. All year long, Griff, this conference has been about defense, and you saw it yesterday. Townsend putting the clamps down on Drexel in the first half last night on the way to that upset victory. Delaware shut off by this Georgia State team, and this is a defensive-minded game here in this first half as well. Yeah,
I was awfully impressed when I read a stat that said something like 7 teams in the conference hold their opponents under 63 points a game. That's a pretty amazing stat, and it's led by Northeastern, actually, who holds their teams to under 56 points a game they allow their opponents. So when you look at Anthony Grant, he really preaches defense. You look at Bill Cohen at Northeastern. George Mason's always played good defense, and certainly Blaine Taylor at Old Dominion.
Well, it's a matter of finding your offense against some very, very well-versed defensive squads. And through 9 minutes here in this one, a low-scoring affair. That's Glenn up in a high post. VCU should be the slightly fresher team, and they also go a little bit deeper in terms of their bench. Hey, at Georgia State, you got more or less just 10 guys who are even in uniform here. And rotationally, you'll probably end up seeing all 10 of them. For the most part, 8 or 9.
Scott, watch this defense. Georgia State now is mixing it up. A triangle and 2 almost. They're really throwing VCU off of their game offensively.
You know, I tried this in youth basketball a couple weeks ago. It didn't work.
It generally doesn't work because you don't rebound the ball well out of it. Nobody's really sure what their assignments are. It's easy to get confused, especially if the offensive team has a lot of movement.
Waiting for you to ask me why it was I was running a triangle with 2 in youth basketball.
I'm not sure why. You're probably trying to outcoach your opponent, that's why.
Not I. Off the inbound, Chase hadn't been a factor yet, and Stillos and his Rodriguez got the quick hands in. And Rozelle lost the handle on it on the way up.
Well, I think Rozelle was looking for a foul there, Scott. There was some contact. Anthony Grant not happy with the non-call.
And Georgia State trying to slow it down a little bit right now. Maynor had been sitting out of the timeout. He'll check in at the whistle.
I think the pace of this game really favors Georgia State. You talked about VCU averaging over 70 points a game. This game is going to be in the 60s if Georgia State can keep it going at this pace.
Curry missed the floater. How about that? From the weak side, it was Dukes flying in without a body on him. He's got 6. And all knotted up now at 13. Georgia State fans are screaming. It hasn't made the big scoreboard. There it is. We had it here on television at 13 apiece. Rodriguez trying to break the tie, and Chase down with the rebound.
Scott, you've seen VCU more than I have this season, but again, they just seem a little bit out of kilter offensively.
They also are having all kinds of trouble on the offensive glass. Georgia State getting multiple looks as they come down.
Georgia State doing a terrific job on the glass. Both ends of the court. They're limiting VCU to 1 shot, and then they're getting second shots on the offensive end.
Goldston had a little bit of trouble last week in that game, and as we said, 0 for 4 from 3 here yesterday. He's had a couple of really open looks. He's only hit on 1 of them so far.
Georgia State is last in the CAA in scoring at only 61 points a game, so they want to take their time when they have the basketball.
Oh, wow. How about that from Glenn? That breaks a nearly 5.5-minute field goal-less drought for VCU. Now, what's the football equivalent of a busted play?
Well, he's a strong, rugged player, and as you said, he just about lost the handle of the basketball, somehow found a way to get it back.
Zone look from VCU, giving Georgia State some fits inside, but yet another offensive rebound. Offensive glass giving them multiple opportunities at it, still haven't cashed in. Good look to the far side. Nixon, though, got it partially blocked. Pashilnikov knocked away, and he's going to go to the free throw line. No foul shots coming for VCU and Kirill Pashilnikov when we come back. Back and forth they go. And Georgia State hanging tough here in this first half of play, still within 2. Banging away along the inside. Georgia State fans pretty happy with their start to this game, in part because of Joe Dukes getting some early points.
Joe Dukes, I think, is really reading the defense well. That time he recognized the defender had his hands down. And this time he just penetrates, fades away like Kobe Bryant. But he's playing beyond his years. He's really set, I think, a tone for his team. A terrific offensive rebound, right place at right time. Joe Dukes is leading the way in a great second half yesterday and has continued it here in the first half against VCU.
Well, Dukes and Trey Goldston, the only Panthers who have scored in this game. 5 offensive rebounds so far for Georgia State, though. And we said, in those trips down the floor, they've had multiple looks, despite the fact they're only shooting 5 out of 18. That's why they're in it. Pashilnikov now shooting 2.
I was looking at the stats for the season. VCU has not been a good rebounding team all year long. Surprisingly, they play good defense, but they have a negative rebound margin versus their opponents, so they're out rebounding almost on a regular basis. Georgia State isn't that much better, but they're showing that they're a better rebounder here this afternoon.
Pashilnikov is a 71% free throw shooter, but he misses a pair. Last year, that game against William & Mary was one of those deals of the longer you let an opponent stick around, the more chance they've got to upset you. And that's how VCU got the early exit last year. The upset with the Tribe. They are allowing Georgia State to hang around right now.
I have to say, Scott, this isn't all that surprising. And what I will think you'll see in the second half is kind of a different VCU team. A team that's going to start the second half a little bit different than the way they started the game. And I think you'll start to see the effect of having to play 2 games in a row for Georgia State.
We are at the Richmond Coliseum here in Richmond, Virginia. Alongside John Griffin, I'm Scott Graham, and Greg Murphy upstairs as well, bringing you coverage of the 2009 Army ROTC CAA Men's Basketball Championship.
Scott, I have to say, I don't think people around the country really appreciate the quality of basketball and the quality of arenas in the CAA. When you look at some of the facilities, like the Patriot Center for George Mason, then coming here for your conference tournament to play here in Richmond, what a great facility, and the way the town and the city has supported this event.
There's no doubt about it. And we have seen our share of excitement here. Some big crowds rocking the place. Georgia State traveling well here. And, of course, the teams that are close in VCU, Old Dominion, George Mason, they're going to have plenty of fans here. Off the turnover, Georgia State still can tie or take the lead as we come up on the 6.5-minute mark left here in the half. Patiently running through progressions, trying to find the open shot. Dukes gave it up inside. And you got a foul call on Dukes. No basket. And he'll get called for the charge, his first.
Well, I like the way Dukes penetrated the lane, and he did find an open teammate. I actually don't like that call because I don't think that he necessarily charged into somebody. That, you know, it wasn't a play of consequence. He was simply looking to pass the basketball. We talk about the way teams travel and some of the support they get in this league. Tonight you're going to have George Mason against James Madison. I mean, this place is going to be rocking. 2 teams for Virginia that get great support locally.
That game's going to be a little bit like a microwave. That's a rarity. An unforced error from Eric Maynor. And the 5th turnover for Anthony Grant's team.
I think Anthony Grant right now is just kind of very calm and kind of measuring things. I think really where you're going to see a difference in this team is in the second half. But at the same time, Scott, you have Georgia State here playing with a lot of confidence. You know, if they can kind of stretch this out and make it a 5-minute game, then anything can happen at that point. But the pace of the game, 15-13, clearly favors Georgia State.
As we said, so similar in a lot of ways to what happened last year. A little backdoor cut, and Dukes will go to the line with a chance to give Georgia State the lead.
How about this penetration and pass by Mendez? Just a no-look pass. Great timing there between two guys. Joe Dukes cutting back door, and Mendez, the senior, seeing him and giving him a perfect bounce pass.
A 72% shooter misses on his free throw. Maynor, that's a great look inside, and a foul call on the floor. That's going to be Duke's second. That's something to keep an eye on now at the 5:23 mark.
Just good penetration, good presence there. And you can see that Santil does a good job of keeping the defender behind him. He establishes position in the low post. People sometimes describe him as a Ben Wallace kind of basketball player, physical, tough, really kind of owning the block.
So as you see the seat now for Dukes, that becomes significant. Santil will shoot another, trying to extend the lead to 2. The freshman out of North Miami, Florida.
I think it's a good idea, though, to sit Dukes, make sure that he can play the entire second half here with not starting it with 3 fouls.
Does that mean you sit him for the rest of the way of the half?
Yeah, if you can. As long as Georgia State doesn't kind of fall way behind, absolutely.
Every coach has a different way of viewing that. Sometimes you'll take the risk, sometimes you won't. I remember you coached a lot against John Chaney. You got 2 fouls. That was it. Your half was over.
You got 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the half. You were out of the game for the remainder 18. That was his philosophy, and it was tried and true. He believed in it. That was kind of more situational. If for some reason you needed your star player back in the game because the game was getting away from you, I wanted him in the game, and I was willing to risk the 3rd foul.
Sanders put it on the floor and lost it on the floor. 6 turnovers now for the Rams, who average just a tick under 13 per game.
You notice Trey Goldston not in a hurry. I mean, they came up with a loose ball there. It wasn't trying to push the ball down the court and create a fast break. They'll take the time.
They shorten the game a little bit now with Duke sitting with those 2 fouls. Long range and no good. A long rebound off the miss by Curry. Oh, my. That was just beautifully done, but kind of slipped through the fingers. Great passing along the interior. Probably should have given VCU a layup. Maynor said, you know what? I'm throwing it up there. Lay it up.
Yeah, he wanted Brad Burgess to go up there and just dunk the ball. He was giving him an alley-oop, but a little bit of miscommunication there. Very talented freshman in Brad Burgess. CAA all-rookie team.
Saw Kevin Lott checking in for his first action, a junior out of Peachtree City, Georgia. 4 minutes to go in the half, and you've got a 1-point ball game with number 8 right on the heels of number 1.
Now more traditional half-court zone here, 2-3 matchup zone versus what we saw before, a little triangle and 2.
Good ball movement. Rozelle can't hit it. Great job by Glenn keeping it alive. He did that all on his own, and he got fouled by Rashad Chase. An argument as to what it was. But yep, it was Chase. Called for the personal foul. And with 3:40 to go in the half, a timeout on the floor. Hand-to-hand combat here in Richmond. 3:40 left to go here first half. VCU on top by a point in what has been truly a defensive battle here over the course course of this first half of play. Georgia State's defense right now is what's keeping them in the game.
Yeah, I think Coach Rod Barnes had a good game plan. Mix it up defensively. Play a little zone, play a little triangle and two, play a little man-to-man, and it's worked. They're doing a terrific job of rebounding the basketball. They're getting back in fast breaks. Their offensive rebounding, they're causing turnovers. I mean, they're playing real good basketball right now, both ends of the court, but it's been primarily their defense holding VCU right now to only 16 first-half points.
Rod Barnes preaches defense. 8 years as the head coach at the University of Mississippi. He was a National Coach of the Year back in 2001.
And I think very interesting, able to bring two players from Ole Miss here. Trey Hampton, a guy that he recruited out of high school, as well as Xavier Hansbrough.
P.J. Gwynn, who did all the hard work in keeping the rebound alive, goes to the line now. 70% free throw shooter, just a tick under on the year. As Sanders will check back in for VCU.
How about the way T.J. Gwynn started this season? He made his first 13 field goals, 13 for 13 to start the season. He was 8 for 8 against Citadel. 20 points, season high for him this year.
He ended up missing 14 games with a foot injury. And ended up coming back just about a month ago now. In fact, exactly a month ago today against William & Mary. Full court pressure. Georgia State has got to find some offense right now from somebody not named Goldston or Dukes. Fields can't hit it. But they keep another rebound alive, and it's Mendez. That won't go.
But Scott, I think you're right. They just look a little bit out of sync here with Joe Dukes on the sideline. You hate to bring him back and risk the third foul here. But nonetheless, Georgia State has not been able to score with him on the sidelines.
This looks like it's going to be a play designed for either Maynor or Sanders. Yep. Inside, Maynor to Sanders.
I think Maynor's just so deceptive. You're just not really sure when he has the basketball. Is he looking to shoot or is he looking to pass? And he really doesn't tip his hand. It's very close to the vest. Sometimes he's going to score and you're going to be off balance as a defender. This time, he just reads the defense perfectly. He doesn't telegraph the pass.
So VCU trying to shake Georgia State here with under 3 minutes to go in the half. They built the lead now to 5. And a steal for Rizal. 7-point lead.
This is a dangerous part of the game for Georgia State. Coach Rod Barnes is going to take the timeout and think it's a smart play. But this game really turned around with Joe Dukes on the sideline. And I think VCU took advantage of it. They changed their defense. They played more full court pressure. And you can see a good half-court trap. Rashad Chase gets double-teamed and gives up the basketball. And this is where VCU can really hurt you. They can score points in a hurry.
Take a look at those numbers. Dukes, who is sitting right now. Goldston, who is in the game, 6 for 12. Rest of the team, 0 for 12 from the floor. You've got to find offense from somewhere else, or this team's going to leave you in the dust. And it looks like Dukes is still sitting out of the timeout.
Well, this is maybe one of those inflection points in the game where, as a coach, you say, you know what, I can't risk getting down by 10 points or more going into the locker room. I might have to bring Joe Dukes in off the bench in the last 2 minutes here and take the chance.
I'll tell you, he had his opportunity right there with a called timeout and didn't do it. He got the ball in the hands of Chase. It's not necessarily where you want it right now, but Gwynn commits the foul. That is only 15th foul on VCU.
Gwynn bailed him out there, really, because, as you said, you don't really want Chase handling the ball at half court. If you're Coach Rod Barnes, it's interesting. You just want the rest of the guys to hold down the fort, but now he brings in reinforcements in Joe Dukes back into the game here for this offensive set. Joe Dukes and Eric Maynor having a few words there, a few laughs. I think there's a healthy respect for both of these guys towards each other.
Two pretty good basketball players. Defense chasing outside, looking for traps if they can get it, trying to create a steal. There it is off the screen and roll, and losing a handle on it was Rashad Chase.
Good pass by Dukes. Really did a good job of reading the defense and finding Chase open on the baseline. And this is where, as a coach, you really want to try to get Dukes out of the game. You'll substitute offense for defense.
Out of contact inside. And that is going to be a foul call. Headed back the other way. Foul call on Burgess. So the 6th-team foul on VCU, and the ball back to Georgia State with 1:48 to go in the half.
Good offensive rebound, but just a bit out of control by Brad Burgess, the freshman, going hard to the basket. Now here's signature VCU defense. Full court pressure, pretty much relentless. Try to trap if they can get you before half court, and then they just play real tight, hard on the ball defense in the half court.
Inside. Great play by Sanders defensively. Kribali had nowhere to go. One week ago, it was VCU by 28 over Georgia State. For the field goal percentage. 7 turnovers apiece as we come up on a minute left to go here in the half.
And this was really a 2-point game up until the point at which Joe Dukes came out of the game. VCU was able to create this lead, the 7-point lead. But other than that, it's been a very solid first half for Georgia State.
Roselle lost the handle, got it back again. But the shot clock expires.
I think Joe Dukes helps this team on both ends of the court. Here's Anthony Grant telling his team, get up there, let's play full court pressure. But with Joe Dukes into the game, there's kind of a calming presence for Georgia State. The press isn't nearly as effective.
They'll be perfectly happy to hang on to this one for as long as they can. Shorten up the half, shorten up the game. They're 3 for their last 19 from the floor.
I like the way Coach Rod Barnes has brought Dukes back into the game. And with 2 minutes to go in the first half, you thought the game could get out of control. But Joe Dukes has done a good job of settling this team down.
Going to 4 low as Dukes calls his own number. Can't hit it. And now Maynor will take his time as he brings him across. They're going to take the use it or lose it timeout to set up a play here with 8.6 left to go in the half.
30-second timeout.
Anthony Grant, a couple of years ago, the CAA Coach of the Year. And now trying to win what would be a second CAA championship in his 3 years here at VCU.
Really impressive numbers when you think of it. He's first head coaching job, terrific job as an assistant at Florida, but his first season won 28 games. They beat Duke in the NCAA tournament, 24 games in his second season, and then 21 coming into this game in his 3rd season. He said, I wasn't going to leave Florida unless it was going to be a special opportunity, and I think he feels like he has that here at VCU.
That was amazing with Billy Donovan apparently walking away and then deciding to go back to Florida, how close he came to potentially returning there. VCU fans happy he was back again for another season this year. Speaking of coaches, we got a couple coming up for you with Murph at halftime. The coaches of Game 2. Lane Taylor and Don Pecora will be joining Murph on the set as we preview game number 2 of our 4 here this afternoon and this evening at Richmond Coliseum. Maynor got the screen and the kick out. Roselle and Sanders got the putback. Count it. Flying in. Sanders at 6'10", out-leaping everybody and getting the putback basket for all the momentum going into halftime.
Well, it was a good set play to get a wide-open shot. I think everybody was concerned about the shooter, and so often happens, there's an offensive rebounder that isn't boxed out, and Sanders is a terrific offensive rebounder. And again, I don't think there's any doubt about this. This basket was good before the shot clock or the game clock expired. And I think VCU goes into the locker room now with a little bit of momentum.
Officials are looking at it, Griffin. And you take a look at it. Obviously, we saw the red light go on. The question is, was the ball out of his hands? Clearly, his hands were on the rim. But the question is, was the ball completely out of his hands as he fired it back on through? You're going to get a very good look at it from this high look here.
I think the officials had a good look at it. Trail officials certainly had a good look at this. Even from our vantage point, Scott, I thought we also had a good look at it as well.
It's out. No red light. 1/10 of a second to go. That's good. Just got it off in time, and the officials are going to look at it to absolutely make sure. Rod Barnes made sure before going back to the dressing room at halftime that he had the officials on this one and looking at it to make absolutely certain. But once again, you watch it get away. Look for the ball out of his hands at about the 1/10 of a second mark before the red light. You're 3/10 of a second, now 2. It's out. There's 1. Still no red light. Now watch the backboard. There it is.
Yeah, and the ball is actually in this cylinder as you see that red light go off. So good camera work by our crew and a good call by the officials.
And a good first half of basketball as VCU try to come out here and win a title. Ends with a 9-0 run and now a 9-point lead going into halftime. We'll continue our coverage. We're going to go up onto the stage and talk to the coaches for game number 2. They were standing by with Murph. Lots of halftime activity coming your way momentarily from here in Richmond.
Welcome back inside the Richmond Coliseum. We're at halftime, and the VCU Rams with a nice run, a 9-point lead at the half over Georgia State, 24-15. As you see our location here, courtside as well. Welcome back, everybody. Greg Murphy, the Comcast Network, getting you set for game number 2 coming up in just a couple minutes, or actually in just about 20 minutes after the second half of our first game. But we're lucky enough to have both coaches for game number 2 with us as well. Blaine Taylor's here. Tom Pecora is here. So welcome, guys. Thanks very much. Getting a chance to see the number 1 seed right now in action, finishing up strong in that first half. The winner of your game heads on to see these guys. But let's not jump ahead. Blaine, talk a little bit about you guys got the rest coming in as a 4 seed, so we'll see your team for the first time today. How's the team feeling?
Well, it's a really balanced matchup. You know, Tom's done a wonderful job with that program, and they've got a really nice club, but we were thrilled to have a chance. This league race is so tough. To have a chance not to have to play yesterday, you know, we were pretty happy about that.
But then again, on the flip side, Tom, if you try to spin it into a positive, you've seen your team in action. They played well yesterday. So where do you stand when you look at the way your squad? No one's ever won this championship having to play every day, but you guys got some action under your belt already.
Yeah, well, you know, you always turn it into a positive as a coach, so we're going to say, well, we did play well. That's an advantage on Saturday. It might be a disadvantage if you're lucky enough to get to Monday, but Old Dominion, you know, the best coach team in the league, I think. And
he's my new agent.
Always tough to prepare for. We have great history of having great basketball games.
You guys met once already this year in the regular season. Tom, your team came out on top at home in a good contest. What went right that night? What do you have to do again?
Well, first thing is playing at home. I think that's not a true barometer when you look at the conference. With an unbalanced schedule, any conference that has that, until you get that team back at home, you really don't know where you are with this whole process. So all of those games go out the window. Records go out the window this time of year. You come in here and...
We remember you beat us.
Trying to be nice.
Spinning it into a positive, exactly, Blaine.
I'm sure they do. They're going to come out with an edge. You know, I'm going to try to convince my guys in the next 20 minutes that we lost.
Good luck with that. They played some great defense against you guys back in that regular season game, holding you guys to about 28% from the field.
They did. I'm not so sure that might not have been the lowest. We shot the whole league race. They had 13 block shots, and they played really hard. They had a tremendous amount of want that night, and it was as good a performance as we've had against us in terms of effort all year.
When you look at this conference, and you both just commented on it, you know, on any given night, you're playing in a tough game. And I guess it really does get you ready for this kind of tournament, Tom, as you get having to play a tough team every night. No matter what round you're in for a battle. You know that.
Oh, very much so. And, that was evident about a month ago when, William and Mary beat Northeastern, who was in second. William and Mary was in 11th. And Wilmington was in last place, and they beat VCU. So I think the gloves are off. Everyone is aware of the great balance in this conference.
In the old days, the quarterfinals aren't like they are now. Now you got 12 teams, and so when you get to these 8, these are like the semifinals in the old days. I mean, these are some great games that you see on this Sunday or this Saturday.
Well, we're seeing a good game right now. We're going to have another one coming up in just a couple minutes. I know you guys have to go in and talk to your teams. We appreciate you taking a couple minutes.
I'll talk to yours, you talk to mine.
Let's do that. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? My guys wouldn't know that.
Tom Pecora, Blaine Taylor, thanks so much. Good luck this afternoon for the rest of the tournament.
Thank
we
you
appreciate it.
9 9-point lead for VCU as we get set to start second half action here in Richmond. I'll remind you that coming up today at 2:30. Keep it right here for more CAA quarterfinal action. Number 4 seed Old Dominion Monarchs taking on the Hofstra Pride. CAA quarterfinal Saturday continues with ODU and Hofstra at 2:30 right here on the Comcast Network. Here's Eric Maynor.
Never seems too bothered, does he? He's always kind of composed, under control, has a sense of what's going on. And I think he plays the game at his pace. He never really is forced to play the game faster than he wants to.
I'll tell you what, that's got to have a calming effect not only on his teammates, the coaching staff over on the bench.
There's only been a few occasions this year and probably in the course of his career where he's been about flustered a little bit, out of control. Sometimes when teams really chest up to him and play physical basketball, he sometimes gets a bit frustrated.
It's going to be a held ball. Possession arrow going back the other way for Georgia State. Well, once again, the refrain that was at the end of the first half continues here early second half. Georgia State's got to get offense from somebody other than Dukes and Golston. They have the only points so far. We're talking about a guy of the scoring capabilities like Leonard Mendez. He was shut out on 0 for 5 in the first half.
I think if you're VCU, on the other hand, Scott, you want to throw the knockout punch here. You want to somehow create a 10 to 15-point lead early in the second half and almost discourage Georgia State into thinking that they can come back.
That's Chase inside, lost the handle. Rodriguez. Oh, my. An emphatic block by Mendez.
Scott, Mendez is an interesting story. You know, he's only averaging about 8.5 points a game this year. He finished the season last game, senior day, with 27 points against Hofstra, but last year he averaged 16 points a game, and his scoring is really down, and I think people are a bit discouraged because they really could use his scoring, especially in a game like this.
Sanders got tied up on the inside. I believe they're calling held ball again, and this time it goes back to VCU. You see the scramble along the inside. The shot clock stays at 24 without the change of possession. And that toss to the inside actually inadvertently kicked away by Rashad Chase. There's 16 on the timer, and VCU keeps it again.
I think as this game wears down to the last 18 minutes or so, and one team realizes that this could be their last game of the season, I mean, nobody leaves anything on the sideline. Everybody puts it on the floor. You're going to see a lot of guys diving into the stands and on the floor.
Big three from Burgess to start the scoring here in the second half. Check it, he had, I guess, 1 foot on the line. It's a 2. At least that's what the scoreboard says right now.
He's made some big threes this season. Against Richmond, he had a huge 3. Against Hofstra, James Madison, he's knocked down some big threes early in his career.
We're double checking on that. I think they have now said, yes, indeed, it was a 3. Looked like a 3. Scoreboard here in the building now has a game at 27 to 15, the correct score with that 3-pointer. Shot clock down to 2. Chase has to let it go. Just got it off and hit it. First points of the day for someone not named Goldston or Dukes.
Well, couldn't have come at a better time. Georgia State has to make a statement here. Otherwise, the game will get away from them.
It's getting away, and it's on the hands of a freshman. Brad Burgess has hit his second 3-pointer.
Well, he's been shooting the ball well, Scott. He had 4 or 5 from 3 against Old Dominion.
Dukes on the run. Got it. Little English off the backboard. Joe Dukes has 10. And Sanders can't handle the hot pass to the inside.
Good look there by Maynor, though. Sanders had his defender right behind him. Really sealed his defender. Maynor recognized it properly and gave him a good pass.
This next minute or 2, or maybe even next 5 minutes, are going to be colossal for the Panthers. Chase inside, lost it. Sanders fighting for the rebound. Nobody's got it, and now Hampton covers it. Ball didn't hit the rim, and no change of possession according to the officials, so the shot clock down to 7. And Goldston on the run, can't hit high off the glass.
Well, even though Georgia State did not shoot the ball well in the first half, they kept the ball alive by getting second shots. And that's the thing that Maynor can do so well. Get in the lane and off balance, hit a floater.
The lead is out to 13 points. You were talking about a knockout punch. It may not be a one punch, but more of a combination right now for VCU.
Somebody called Eric Maynor the dagger, and you can see why. He gets these baskets when you least expect it, and they have the optimal effect.
And they are just defensively clamping down right now. Nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. Mendez hits for his first 2 of the game with a hand clearly in his face.
Big step-up shot there by Leonard Mendez. The senior's going to have to make his mark here, otherwise Georgia State will finish their season. Mendez is a guy that can make a difference, however. He's a very capable double-digit scorer.
Sanders had it stripped away, so VCU will keep it when we come back. 8 points here in the first 4 minutes for VCU. A lot of it coming off the hand of the freshman Bradford Burgess. Back-to-back three-pointers, and Eric Maynor helping to cap off the 8-point run to start things off here in the second half as VCU has built a lead. The lead is now 11 for VCU. Early moments of the second half of action as they try to find a place in the semifinals tomorrow. And speaking of which, it is Sunday. Today's winners duking it out for the chance to vie for the CAA championship crown. March Madness starting right here with CAA semifinals tomorrow at 3 and 5:30 right here on the Comcast Network. Looking forward to that. Good to be doing a tournament with you again. Griff, it's been a while.
It's terrific, Scott. And, you know, this is a great place to watch a game and be part of the March Madness. As I came into the game, and there's a good look at the arena. The crowd was here. The bands are terrific. And you have Virginia Commonwealth, I think, with a great supporting cast here in Richmond. And it gave you the flavor of, you know, we're back. We're back into the March Madness, and the CAA does a terrific job of hosting this tournament here in Richmond.
Well, these are the individual kickoffs in conference tournaments that go right on around to Selection Sunday, which will be next weekend, and then maybe the greatest sporting event over the course of a few weeks in all of sport. I'll tell you what, I'll toss it out there as it is because there's nothing more exciting those first couple of days of the NCAA tournament.
Well, I came here about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game, just like you, and the VCU fans were lined up, waiting to come in, all dressed up in their blue, their black and their gold, as fired up as can be. And right now, the team on the court is responding. I thought in the second half, VCU would pick it up, and they certainly have. Last 5 minutes of the first half have been extraordinarily solid. Here's this defense. It's just relentless full-court pressure.
Georgia State going to have to use a timeout because they were looking at a 10-second call. There was nothing to do with the basketball. And a 30-second timeout will become a full as Rod Barnes tries to figure out the pressure defense. Lead is now 13 for VCU. 15-16 to go. Their big man in the middle, Larry Sanders, a big part of how they've run out to this advantage.
He's been just solid in the lane. We know him as a shot blocker, but he's a very capable scorer. He's been playing great basketball, especially at the offensive end in the latter part of this season. And when you think, Scott, he's only a sophomore. This VCU team is a very young team outside of Eric Maynor.
Well, he has really stepped up his game offensively. He was the all-rookie team last year. More defensive player than everything else, but this year his numbers have jumped up to better than 11 points per game, 8 rebounds per game. And still a premier shot blocker. Biggest roadblock he has had to being completely dominant has been some foul trouble he's had in certain games.
Yeah, and he's been able to stay on the court longer, and I think that's had a great effect on his team. And how about being selected as the CAA Defensive Player of the Year?
Sitting here right now is Peshelnikov will handle the inside for VCU. They are just locking down defensively. Goldston had to beat the timer and did, but that's about it. Burgess the other way. Throw it away.
Well, he had an opportunity for a breakout there. Sometimes when you're forced into taking a long shot, it creates a long rebound and gives the team on the defensive end a chance for a fast break.
And a foul is going to send Krubal to the free throw line.
Second, team foul number 1.
Well, Georgia State has been very active on the offensive glass all night long. Kubale, that time, right place, right time. The thing about Kubale is just not strong enough to finish. He's still very thin. He's a junior, about 195 pounds. But he still has a lanky frame, and Coach Ron Barnes gets a lot out of Kubale, given the fact that he's a walk-on.
Back in the middle of February, big victory for Georgia State at Northeastern. It was Kubale's layup at the buzzer and won that game for Georgia State. That was back when Northeastern was in first place and gearing toward the top seed here. As Rodriguez will take a seat, Georgia State back to within 11 right now.
Coach Rod Barnes shows a little full court pressure, three-quarter court pressure, kind of trying to force VCU to make a mistake.
Great job of beating that pressure and getting a good look for Burgess, who's got 8 here in the second half.
Well, we saw Burgess knock down a couple threes. That time shows his ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket. Only a freshman, getting a lot of minutes here for Coach Anthony Grant.
A dribbled right into harm's way. Again, the pressure, creating the turnover, and an easy two.
A poor decision on the part of James Fields to try to thread that needle and dribble between 2 or 3 VCU players. Crowd now gets into this game, and for the large part of the first half, Scott, the crowd wasn't a factor in this game, but they smell blood right now, and here's that full court pressure. James Fields thinks he can really dribble between 3 guys and loses the handle, giving VCU and TJ Gwynn an easy basket at the other end. Now this is a point when you know that you're going to play a couple games perhaps in 3 days. Coach Anthony Grant can start to manage his bench a little bit more. He feels like he has this game under control with 13 and a half minutes to go. He can start stretching out that bench and giving some of his starters a little bit more time to rest and get ready for tomorrow.
Team is shooting 6 for 8 here in the second half and span it back to the first half. They're on a 23-8 run right now. They've grown this lead to 15 points.
When you play full court pressure this way, you really expose the weaknesses of your opponent. If your opponent has some weak ball handlers and they're forced to handle the basketball, they're going to be prone to making mistakes.
They're in trouble again right now. And another turnover caused by the full court pressure.
Well, one of the things that's happening is VCU is keeping the ball away from Joe Dukes, and it's forcing the ball into the hands of guys like Rashad Chase. He's not a ball handler. He's not a point guard. So he's going to make some mistakes. You have to get guys like Joe Dukes back to handle the basketball.
And Chase creates the turnover back the other way. But turnover's a big factor last week. When Georgia State was at VCU, they turned it over 21 times in that game. Only 7 turnovers at the half today. So things were looking good, but it's been 3 that have been caused directly by that full court pressure that have given VCU its pad now in this game.
Well, VCU can also take some chances, putting a lot of pressure on the ball and overplaying the wings because they have a shot blocker in the lane in Larry Sanders.
Big take to the hoop, and Chase there for the follow off the miss by Dukes.
Good positioning by Chase. He's going to have to do more of that. Chase, Mendez, Curry are going to have to step up offensively. These guys combined average about 23 points, but they've been very quiet on the offensive end.
You're right about Maynor. He knows when it's time to throw that haymaker for the knockout, and he's throwing it right now.
Well, oftentimes he doesn't even look to shoot. That time, again, he was just effortlessly let go of the basketball. So hard to guard him because he keeps you off balance. You're not really sure what he's going to do.
And a foul call on the way to the hoop. Result in free throws coming now for Rashad Chase.
As well as
It's number 2 on Maynor, but back at the other end, it's there. I'll take it.
great range. Maynor, you know, he started out his career being able to score going to the basket, but in his junior and senior year, he really stretched out his game and worked on being able to score the three ball. And you can see the range there. He was about 3 or 4 feet beyond the three-point stripe and effortlessly made that shot.
There are NBA scouts who have talked about where he would fit at the next level. I don't care necessarily where he fits at the next level. This guy could just flat play basketball. And you got to think he's going to have an opportunity to play it at that next level and succeed at it. A funny look at the free throw line from Chase, but he hits on a pair. Georgia State trying to hang around, still within 14.
I liked after the last game, Coach Anthony Grant gave Eric Maynor a belt, almost like a belt you'd see at a prize fight championship bout for achieving that most points in school's history. But it was kind of neat to see, and I think he really celebrated the achievements of Eric Maynor.
VCU has hit all 4 of their three-pointers after making just 1 in the first half. All 4 here in the second. And this game, despite Chase's lay-in, has VCU's pace stamped all over it right now.
Yeah, they really picked it up here in the second half. They're getting easier baskets. They're making certainly more of their shots. I think Chase has really put a good showing here to start the second half.
Rozelle the miss and a push-off for Sanders to try to get that rebound. Will send it back the other way. We talked about the big man getting it done, but it's been the outside game for VCU raining down here in the second half. Number 1 seed is flying high now. 11:29 left to go here in this one. VCU using the long ball to stretch this lead.
Burgess has really stepped up here in the second half. He's made a couple threes. It's just good ball movement by VCU to find the open man. There's Maynor. He's knocking down a shot from about 24 feet. But they're firing on all cylinders right now, Scott, and they're creating some gap here. It's going to be difficult for Georgia State to make a comeback. I think VCU is feeling some confidence now. They got their legs under them. I think the idea of sitting out last night and yesterday, I think it's worn itself off. They're ready to play. And I think they want to get back into this championship game and get to the NCAA tournament. They're certainly playing like that right now, especially shooting 4 for 5 from 3 here in the second half.
And it's not just the threes. They're 8 for 11 from the floor here in the second half, shooting 73%. And this pressure defense has really bothered Georgia State. Duke's on the runner. A lot of defense in the way. That ball's staying at this end. A foul call coming against VCU. It'll go on Pashelnikov.
Well, Georgia State is starting to attack now. They're not holding back and taking time off the clock like they did in the first half. This full court pressure by VCU is actually speeding up the game, and it's going to force Georgia State to convert. Otherwise, again, the game will get away from them. I thought they did a good job in the first half of controlling the tempo of the game, but they're going to run out of time if they do that in the last 11 minutes here of this game.
They're going to have to reach down in these last 11 minutes and find at least one more run to try to get back in, get within shouting distance. Chase has come on in the second half, but missing there from close range.
It's not really their style to come up and shoot the ball quickly, but they're going to be forced into that because of this deficit that they have to make up with only 10 minutes to go.
Pashelnikov inside. Couldn't get the friendly roll, and that's stuck in there, so held ball will send it back the other way.
Possession to Georgia State.
We are here at Richmond Coliseum in Richmond, Virginia. I'm glad to be with you alongside John Griffin. Greg Murphy is upstairs. I'm Scott Graham bringing you coverage of the 2009 Army ROTC CAA Men's Basketball Championship.
If VCU were to win this tournament and get to the NCAAs, I don't think you want to play VCU. They have a neutralizer here in Larry Sanders. I mean, he's a big-time player. His size will allow him to match up against almost anybody in the country. He's a little bit thin, he's a little bit raw, but he certainly has the wingspan and he certainly has the timing. I mean, he can be a low post defender at a very high level, and then Eric Maynor can play with any guard in the country. So last year when I thought of the run of Davidson, I wouldn't be at all shocked to see VCU have a run like that.
Well, when they won it a couple of years ago, they jumped right out and shocked Duke, shocked the world. Maynor took over in the championship game in the last couple of minutes against George Mason, took over in the last few moments of the Duke game in the NCAAs. And a foul call along the outside will be on Rodriguez. His second.
And when you think of the CAA and you think of the NCAA tournament, how can you forget George Mason and that magical run to the Final Four? And I think that people are starting to really appreciate the quality of basketball. Not just the quality of coaches. There are three coaches in this league with over 400 wins. But the quality of players.
This year, however, based upon RPI and everything else, it's going to be win to get in if you're a CAA member. And Mendez with an opportunity now to cash in on a three-point play and try to get his team back to within 12.
It's a big-time basket here by Leonard Mendez. That time he just steps up. He's just looking for a shot here. Takes his man off the dribble, elevates, 6'5". He's got a good frame. He can get up in the air, create some space. Leonard Mendez is going to have to do that now repeatedly in the last 9.5 minutes of this game.
Sixth all-time leading scorer in Georgia State history. Needed 22 to move to number 5. He's got 6 here on the afternoon, and his team back to within 12.
First half, you saw Georgia State mix up its half-court defense, play some half-court zone. This time, with under 9 minutes or 9 minutes or so to go, they're going to play pretty much man-to-man and try to force some turnovers.
Ozell got it from 3.
And I give Eric Maynor credit for that basket. He made a cross-court pass, not even looking. I mean, he had an incredible sense of where his teammates are.
The boat is leaking right now for Georgia State. Eric Maynor and his teammates providing the pressure and a couple of very big made shots.
Look at that pass across the court. The defenders were so caught off guard. And when you have a guy that just sees the court that well, it's so hard to defend. Not just him, but everybody else. You have to really be defending 4 other guys, because if you make a mistake, he's going to find that open man. I mean, really, to guard Maynor, you need to put 2 guys on him. But if you do, he's just really going to take you apart, because he's going to find the guy that's open and give him a pass in a place where he can score.
It's a really, really good basketball player. Period. End of sentence. In every sense of the word, in every sense of the feel of the game. Once again, good pass inside. And having got away briefly, Sanders couldn't cash in.
Good defensive play there by Hansbrough.
We're wondering right now, Georgia State, if they'll even get to 47 at this point. They got to start hitting, and that's a good start for them as Hansbrough nails a 3.
Well, the big guy, 6'10", can step outside beyond the arc and knock down a shot.
8.5 to go. Winner moves on to the semifinals. The first game here tomorrow afternoon against the winner of our next game, Hofstra and Old Dominion. Sanders has 2 on him. Doesn't matter. And he bought the contact that'll send him to the free throw line. Fans here are sarcastically cheering because to this point, team fouls were VCU 6, Georgia State none here in the second half.
It's funny how fans keep track of such things. I know coaches do.
Sanders, it's an area of his game that he's going to have to improve upon. 55% from the free throw line. You got to imagine that as things change next year and Sanders becomes a focal point of this VCU offense, teams are going to give up a foul or 2 to put him at the line if he doesn't prove the ability to be able to hit from there.
Yeah, it's always surprising to me. I mean, in this respect, I'm not totally surprised, but as you mentioned, 55% from the foul line and 51 or 52% from the field. So he's going to have too many touches and force too much contact he'll get to the foul line an awful lot of times. It's just too many missed points to give up if you're not converting a higher percentage.
One reason this game is not over just yet is that VCU's just 3 out of 8 from the free throw line. Georgia State trying to build on that last three-pointer last time down. Under 8 left to play. That guy hasn't had the ball in his hands a whole lot here in the second half, but he's the scorer. Shot clock down to 5. Dukes up and under. What a move around Sanders.
I thought Scotty measured his defender a couple times and could have taken a 3. That time, the degree of difficulty was even more because he not only took the ball against Rodriguez, but he also had to score against Sanders.
Rodriguez had him man for man as a timeout is called by Anthony Grant. That was the help side defense coming over from Sanders right up and under him.
But he has a way of just slicing through the defenders. It looked like Sanders was offering some help, but Sanders didn't try to block the shot, and Dukes does a terrific job of getting in between the defenders and finishing that shot. Tremendous poise and finesse and going to the basket.
Well, a mini run for Joe Duke's team that amounts to 10-3 to get him back to within 10 now.
Well, for what it's worth, Dukes is back next year as a junior. You have Trey Goldston back. He's another junior. Dante Curry's only a sophomore. Mendez is going to be lost as well as Rashad Chase, 2 seniors. But Hansbrough's back. Lott, Probali.
This has a chance to be a pretty good team next year for Georgia State.
Well, I think Coach Rod Barnes has taken a step, certainly from last year to this year, and I would suspect with guys that he has coming in, next year will even be a bit better.
Maynor got stripped. A rescue from Rozelle, and then Maynor for 3. He got it. Doesn't seem to matter.
You know, in the last game against Georgia State, he only had 9 points. I think he really scores when he's needed to, but he's just as comfortable to pass the basketball. Kind of reminds me a lot of Chris Paul. You know, when I think of Eric Maynor perhaps as an NBA player, it wouldn't shock me at all if he's a guy that has 10, 12 assists in a game.
He's been setting his teammates up, but he's got 2 of the 6 3-pointers his team has hit in the second half in 7 attempts.
It's really an unusual combination, Scott, when you think of a guy that has over 1,800 points and averages 6 assists a game.
That's the amazing thing. Duke's hitting from 3, and he's got 15 now, trying to keep him in it as we cross the 6.5-minute mark left to go.
Joe Dukes is quite a competitor. I just see his body language. He's really doing a great job of getting his teammates focused and holding them accountable.
Off the steal. Dukes has it knocked away. Ball pinned against the glass. They going to call that good? I think they're calling the basket good. Crowd doesn't like the call at all, with the exception of the Georgia State faithful right behind the visiting bench. The basket will count, a chance for a 3-point play, and don't look now. Anthony Grant is upset. As Dukes comes down the floor, he's got Georgia State with a chance to get back within 7 when we return here to Richmond. A lot of action on the inside and outside for VCU, but Georgia State hanging around 50-42 with 6:19 to go. Start thinking about 2007, the tournament in Richmond, seeing top-seeded VCU having to stage a dramatic comeback in the last 2 minutes of the championship game against George Mason. They were led by, well, who else? Then sophomore guard Eric Maynor. Mason had the lead in that game, 57-52 with 2:22 left to go behind Fowler and Campbell, but reigning CAA Player of the Year spurs a 9-0 run all by himself. A sequence of back-to-back steals, layups, tip-ins. And when the dust settles, VCU defeats Mason 65-59. Then they went on into the first round, upset Duke in the NCAA tournament on the way out to a 28-win season a couple of years back. And Dukes caps off the 3-point play, so a 7-point ball game. Close as it's been in a long, long time, at any time here in the second half.
Yeah, kind of surprising right now, and Joe Dukes certainly have a huge impact on this comeback by Georgia State, showing no quit at all. I think it's a great credit to this team. They certainly didn't fold. Very different than the last time they played VCU.
You're a coach out of that timeout. I got to be thinking, you're saying to your players, this is it. We're right there. This is what we worked for all season. Let's go. But, of course, you got to face him.
Well, you got to do it on the defensive end as well as the offensive end. And when Eric Maynor is making shots like that, you'd say, geez, what do I have to do? Because Georgia State played pretty good defense on that possession. Eric Maynor was almost falling out of bounds, and he makes the shot. It's interesting for me as I watch him. Sometimes he's really looking to score, and other times he's looking to pass. The last couple possessions, he's looking to score, and he's incredibly efficient when he wants to score the basketball.
Most of that scoring will end up coming in the last 2 minutes. I should say 20 minutes of the game in the second half. Sanders, big block. Hansbrough's wide open. Missed it badly. And now Duke's an offensive rebound.
Good hustle on the part of Dukes. Dukes wanted goaltending on that last drive to the basket.
Now it's going to be a foul call on Maynor. Maynor says, come on, I got all ball.
He was about a millisecond from getting a technical foul. Probably a good choice on Eric Maynor's part to walk away.
Oh, my. I did what? You can tell he was trying right out of the chute to look down, look away, trying to make his point without showing up the official, but he was very close to getting teed up.
Well, I got a technical a game not long ago, and I think he was apologetic to his teammates for that. Certainly, you don't want to get a technical at this stage of the game. 5 minutes to go. You have a fairly comfortable lead, although Georgia State is making a run at it. And partly due to the fact that Joe Dukes is playing such aggressive basketball. 18 points, 8 for 15 from the field.
And off the miss of the second, it stays a 9-point game with 5 minutes left to go. Now, wait a second. No shot. Foul call is on the outside. I'll tell you what, it's getting ugly.
Well, I think the crowd has something to do with this guy. I think actually the officials are doing a very good job. That was not a shooting foul. That was a foul before the shot. Okay, good reach around, good call. And there's a lot of contact in the lane, and I think the fans are getting on the officials about that because, as you mentioned earlier, disproportionate number of fouls, Georgia State versus VCU.
Anthony Grant taking a timeout on the inbound. He is stalking like an angry cat right now. He has not been happy with the way this has gone officiating-wise, and has been very clear about that and the way he's conducted himself on the sideline.
Well, it's in the eye of the beholder. You and I are sitting here, and the fouls are 8-2. Okay, well, one of the things I'm going to point to is the fact that VCU plays much more aggressive defense, okay? They just generally play harder in-your-face defense.
Well, Sunday at 8, we're going to take you inside the House Transportation Committee to show you just how the stimulus money is going to be spent on Roll Call TV. Then at 8:30, people used to trust the media to get their news. No more. Our experts tell us why, where you need to go to get your info. We're 09, and it's your call with Lynn Doyle. All Sunday starting at 8 on the Comcast Network.
I have to say, I think the officials are doing a good job. And when you're officiating these games here at technically a neutral site, okay? This is the conference tournament championship series.
Wow, what a play by Dukes. The steal off the long inbound pass. And Georgia State is still right there within 7.
Good hustle on the part of Joe Dukes to, again, keep his team alive. But I just think the officials do a good job of keeping control of this basketball game, making sure that it's fairly officiated.
And Chase going to get called for the reach-in foul, the third team foul. That'll just reset the timer and result in an inbound.
Just good anticipation, almost like a defensive back in football. Joe Dukes reads the play, gets his hand on the pass, keeps the tip alive, and almost passes the ball to himself as he takes the ball in stride and lays it up.
4:22 to go. 7-point lead for the number 1 seed over number 8. Now making a 10-point lead. Third three-pointer of the second half for freshman Bradford Burgess.
Well, the three-point shooting of VCU in the second half has just been phenomenal. I'm going to say short of that, Georgia State has played pretty good defense, but VCU has been flawless from the three-point line.
8 for 9 here in the second half. Off the pick and roll. Chase, late pass, throw it away. And the ball goes back the other way when we come back. Rod Barnes' team trying to hang around, doing the best they can. But with 3:49 to go, Anthony Grant's team is in the driver's seat. 56-46, a 10-point lead for the number 1 seed with under 4 minutes left to go here in this one. And we talked about it from the top. We've been talking about it all year. We've been talking about it for 3 years. Every time VCU needs something done, they've got a guy to turn to. Invariably, this guy gets it done.
Well, he's really stepped up in the second half. Very quiet offensively in the first half, and we talked about that. Only 2, but he has 13 second-half points, 5 for 5 from the field. So when this game got a little bit tight, Eric Maynor stepped up and drilled some shots, particularly long-range shots from the corner, and he's just been perfect in the second half. He's distributed the basketball effectively the entire game. As you can see, there's 13 second-half points. He does what his team needs him to do in order to win basketball games.
As our friend Rob Kennedy points out frequently, he gets his teammates involved early in the game, and then if necessary, he takes it over when he needs to.
I think it's a great way to play. I mean, if you have the command and presence to do that, because if you try to take over the game offensively in the first half, the rest of your team just stands around and watches. When you think of some of the better scorers in pro basketball or college basketball, you tend to see their teams not be that successful because the rest of the guys become spectators.
Oh, goodness. Michelnikov off the miss by Maynor. It kind of tickled the rim and fell away, but VCU will keep the basketball. Rams trying for their 22nd win of the year and to earn a spot in the semifinals here tomorrow afternoon. Certainly a hometown advantage. Take a look at the three-point numbers. Remember, VCU had just 1 three-pointer in the first half. Great look off the inbound, but Sanders couldn't finish. There's Dukes. He's got the last 12 points right now for Georgia State.
Well, resetting the offense worked for Georgia State in the first half. They just can't afford to take that much time off the clock here with 3 minutes to go. VCU doing a good job in the half court, forcing Georgia State further from the basket.
That's a good setup. Curry in and out from 3. The crossover by Maynor. Wow.
Always under control. Terrific crossover move and a floater in the lane. That was a very difficult shot, Scott. He makes it look easy.
And Hansbrough drains a 3. Quick timeout for Rod Barnes with 2:35 to go as he's back within 9. We'll give Georgia State all kinds of credit for the way that they have hung here in this game despite an onslaught of threes and an onslaught of Eric Maynor. They have hung around.
Yeah, and Hansbrough is not necessarily a good three-point shooter. He's only shooting 19% on the season, but he drains a big one there, and you can see Eric Maynor, one of his signature floaters in the lane, set up with a fantastic crossover move to get past his defender.
We want you to keep it right here. Hofstra and Old Dominion as quarterfinal action continues. It's a number 4 seed against number 5. Going to come up at about 2:30 Eastern this afternoon. Second game of our 4 here from Richmond Coliseum right here on the Comcast Network. Well, our nighttime doubleheader as well tonight, and then the semifinals tomorrow afternoon. A lot of basketball, all compacted into just 2 days, and it is the perfect appetizer to get you ready for March Madness.
And as we proceed through this tournament, I think there's going to be some great games. Inasmuch as VCU finished first in the seeding here and during the regular season wins the regular season, this is the first time in a long time that it's been this close. And teams with this many losses had surfaced in the top part of the league.
Well, I think VCU is right now a clear number 1 seed, but any of the top 5 seeds, I think, could easily end up winning this thing. 2:20 to go. Playing keep away right now, and Rodriguez going to call for a timeout as he was about to get trapped. Now, an interesting thing is, Anthony Grant's got to talk to his team here. I guess you've got to expect a foul in this situation, John, but at the same time, you're talking about a spot where They only have 3 team fouls. They've got a lot of fouls to give before they would get VCU to the line.
Yeah, the downside of not fouling is when you're behind, you're going to have to foul. And it takes a lot of time off the clock to get to the point where you put your opponent in the bonus. So it's interesting in terms of how you manage fouls. Sometimes you actually do want to foul.
For Georgia State, sometimes you do actually want to get the ball in the hands of Joe Dukes.
Yeah, he's had a terrific season so far. He's playing up to his billing. Sometimes when you promote a guy coming into the game, they don't really have the game you expected, but he's been all of that. The transfer from Wake Forest, I think, has had an outstanding season. And he's really stepped up in this game, playing against a terrific defensive team and playing against one of the best guards in the country, Eric Maynor.
21 points to lead all scorers, but that guy with the ball in his hands has the lead right now. They're looking to see if they can give up a foul. Now you don't want to necessarily with only 7 left on the timer. Sanders spun his wheels. It's a traveling violation, and it'll go back the other way.
Good defensive possession there by Georgia State, but in a sense it accomplished what VCU wanted, which was to take time off the clock. You know, when I was talking to you before about balance, this is the thing that stuck out of me. There are 6 teams in this league that have 10 conference wins. And that's surprising, and what it really says is the teams have beaten up on each other over the course of the season. It hasn't happened in the CAA in the last 4 years.
And what it has also done is change the landscape, not only with regard to this tournament, but in terms of all of their RPIs. And it's basically meant that it's going to be a one and done in terms of NCAA tournament bids. It also means that this team is going to be represented in another postseason tournament. This league will be represented, and represented pretty well. You don't have time for this. Georgia State, you just flat don't have time for this.
No, you have to force the action. You have to almost force VCU to foul. You just go to the basket and try to get to the foul line.
You simply don't have the time you just used. And you lost the basketball and got away without a shot. Now you can foul to your heart's content, but it's still going to end up taking you a few more just to get them to the line with 90 seconds left to go.
I think sometimes teams are so focused on trying to get a free ball that they take more time than they need. And, you know, the enemy at this point is the clock. And you'd be better off just taking a quick 2 than waiting around for a 3.
Maynor got a great job in making sure they couldn't catch him to foul him. Trying to take it away or trying to foul, neither is happening. And finally the foul, but again, that is only team foul number 5, and 9 seconds roll off the clock.
And even if you do put VCU on the foul line, they're a 71% foul shooting team. So other than Larry Sanders, just about everybody else is 70% or better.
Maynor perfectly content.
Kind of a dilemma here. You don't want to foul him. He's an 82% foul shooter, but you don't want to let time expire on the clock.
They have let far too much time go by. It just leaked away on him here. That little wraparound doesn't go, but now you're down to about a minute to go, and you're still down 9.
1 minute remaining.
Long 3. Well short. Dukes a rebound, then a putback. That would have gone. Instead, it's going to be 2 shots coming for Dukes with 53.4 left to go.
Dukes is awfully impressive here this afternoon, Scott. I mean, not only is he scoring, but he's rebounding the basketball. And he's rebounding the basketball against a 6'10 guy in Larry Sanders. And look how he uses that left hand to kind of balance himself. He actually initiates the contact, but gets the benefit of the foul and go to the foul line.
Miss, and one more try coming for Georgia State. Time running down on a terrific season for Joe Dukes. Terrific season for Rod Barnes and his squad. One out of 2 for Dukes, but an 8-point game. Got to foul immediately. And they're not. They're just simply not getting there. The foul from behind is foul number 6. So again, no shots coming yet. Reset the shot clock. And you're going to have to reach in as soon as you can and see if you can lengthen this game.
Well, Burgess is another guy you might want to put on the foul line of the guys in the game other than Sanders. I mean, Burgess is a 65% free throw shooter.
I don't know what they're waiting for, John. I really don't. And there's your foul. Well, Rozelle gets fouled with 38 seconds to go. But if you take this all the way back to where they were with a little bit over 2 minutes left to go in the game, this is the first time they've used a foul to actually force a change of possession. That's an awful lot of time to lose.
Well, sometimes I think coaches during the course of the season don't want to let a close game get away from them and lose a game by 20 because you put your opponent on the foul line an awful lot in the last 2 minutes of the game. But in this instance, it really doesn't matter. There is no other game. You have to risk losing by 20 to make a comeback.
Rozelle, 77% on the year from the free throw line. That free throw touch may be coming back now for VCU. Just 9 out of 15 going into that attempt.
One shot.
Well, this has been a competitive game throughout. You know, it seemed like VCU was pulling away, and Georgia State did a good job of closing the gap, primarily on the backs of Joe Dukes. But I don't think Coach Anthony Grant has had the opportunity to rest his players, perhaps as he thought he might, when his team got out to a double-digit lead early in the second half.
Well, VCU is looking to get to the semifinals. That's where they're headed. Maynor running out in front. It's fouled. A breakaway. And with 27.3 to go, the folks here in Richmond that are wearing black and gold can very happily make their plans for tomorrow afternoon.
Well, not really a smart decision on the part of James Fields trying to challenge Larry Sanders, one of the best shot blockers in the conference. Leads to a fast break opportunity by Eric Maynor. And you really, at this point in the game, you want to make sure that Eric Maynor doesn't get hurt. He went to the basket that time. Part of me was just wondering, just stay healthy here for the last 27 seconds of this game. It wouldn't shock me at all if Eric Maynor comes out of the game. Coach Anthony Grant does not want to take a chance.
1 out of 2, though. He's going to have to stay on the floor, at least for right now. And the right now part is almost over anyway. Sanders called for a foul with 22 seconds to go in an 11-point game. It's a fourth on Sanders. He's managed for the most part to stay out of foul trouble today.
Well, he doesn't agree with the call, and it's just uncanny to me how Joe Dukes can go to the basket, hang in the air, position his body to make contact and draw the foul. Larry Sanders is almost trying to avoid contact.
And as you expected, John, Maynor will sit for these final 22 seconds. Safely over on the bench. He's going to get applause all the way around at home again with 18 points on the afternoon. 16 of them here in the second half. And he'll have at least one more day in a VCU uniform.
Well, I think this crowd that's supporting VCU here this afternoon will even be larger tomorrow as VCU has a chance to play either Hofstra or Old Dominion.
Breaking the pressure, running away. They're going to let him dribble it out. VCU, the #1 seed, does everything necessary, and their defense carries him today. They're going to walk out of here with a 9-point victory and advance to the semifinals here in the 2009 CAA Championships.
Well, one step closer to this NCAA tournament bid. A good second half by VCU, and I think a very strong showing by Coach Rod Barnes and his team here at Georgia State. They had a good game plan coming in. The game got away from them a little bit. They were not able to close the gap, really, but Joe Dukes had a terrific outing for Georgia State.
Anthony Grant, who won this thing, is now 5-1 as a head coach in CAA tournament play and 50-10